Hello, welcome back to Rogue Rocket. My name is Philip DeFranco, and today we're going to be talking about something that you've probably seen, but didn't realize what it was. Have you ever seen an ad for something called Shen? Like, do you recognize this billboard? Do you recognize this ad on the side of a bus? Maybe you've seen one inside of a train, or again on this billboard. Right, and the point is that these ads seem to be literally everywhere, and they've become so widespread that the internet's even turned them into memes. You've got classics like a Shen ad captured by the Mars rover, or there's the fan theory that the unseen force in Bird Box was actually Shen advertisements. And of course, who could forget this alternate scene from The Lion King?
How can I go back? I'm not who I used to be.
Remember who you are. You are my son, and the one true king. Remember.
Full disclosure, that one was made by our editors. We have to have them have fun every now and then. Also, no, to answer the question that may be in your head, this is not a story about memes. Rather, it's about how Shen and their parent organization, the Falun Gongs, clash with China. And as far as why these two have issues, well, the Chinese government describes Falun Gong as anti-humanity, anti-science, and anti-society cult, and a cancer in the body of the modern and civilized society. And Shen on the other hand, says that since the Chinese Communist Party is officially an atheist regime, it is afraid of the freedom of expression this arts company enjoys in the West. It also claims that the Chinese government has infiltrated Chinese student associations in the United States to push anti-Shen and anti-Falun Gong agendas. And the Falun Gong itself claims that it is persecuted in China, saying in fact that the government has imprisoned its members and harvested their organs. So, on that note, to go down this rabbit hole to figure out the reality of these strong claims, we had Dylan Siegel from the Rogue Rocket team jump into it.
Shen is a traveling dance and orchestral troupe whose goal is to revive the lost world of traditional Chinese culture and share it with everyone. In Chinese, the two characters for Shen mean something like divine rhyme, which the group loosely translates as the beauty of divine beings dancing. Shen incorporates a new performance each year that includes dance, costumes, backgrounds, singing, and music. In their own words, Shen weaves a wondrous tapestry of heavenly realms, ancient legends, and modern heroic tales, taking you on a journey through 5,000 years of Chinese culture. And the performances have sparked testimonials like this.
I see God. I see the spirit of love and peace and the way that you would want the universe to be.
The group has been very successful, touring as wide as New York's Lincoln Center and Taiwan's National Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall, all the while reaping significant profits in recent years. But Shen origins and a couple key acts during the performance seem to point to a distinct agenda. Or as Cassie H. from San Mateo, California said on Yelp, do not go to see Shen nothing but propaganda and a ripoff. The performances not only showcase dance and music, but often have a distinctly anti-Chinese government, anti-communist angle to them. In one show, there was a scene where the faces of Chairman Mao and Karl Marx are menacingly included as the backdrop to a dark atmosphere. And in another, young students read Falun Gong books and meditate, only to have what appear to be communist grunts beat up the students. The scene ends with a woman raising a banner with 3 Chinese characters on them. It's no coincidence that those 3 characters are the Falun Gong's motto: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. But Shen ties to Falun Gong go beyond just a banner in the show. Regional Falun Gong associations organize Shen performances in each city. That means raising funds, helping with publicity, and other logistics. And according to The Guardian, the leader of Falun Gong, Li Hongzhi, explained exactly how the current dance troupe came to be. There was a group of disciples involved in the arts who wished to use their professional skills to expose the persecution and save sentient beings. After believing that the show could use improvement, Li stepped in to lead the group, and thus Shen was born. So what is Falun Gong?
Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, is an advanced self-cultivation practice that improves mental and physical wellness through physical exercises and the development of one's character.
Li introduced his teachings to the public in 1992, and 2 years later, he published Falun Gong's foundational document called Zhuan Falun. But during that same time, the Chinese government had been pushing back on protests and social organizations ever since the Tiananmen Square protests. Even so, Falun Gong's popularity grew throughout the 90s. By 1999, there were around 2 million followers of Falun Gong, according to the US Department of State. That made it one of the largest non-government organizations in post-1949 China, which made the central government nervous. The Communist Party doesn't like having rival organizations. By April 1999, the conflict between the Chinese government and Falun Gong reached a new height. 10,000 Falun Gong followers gathered in Beijing to protest their treatment, but just 3 months later, the Chinese government outlawed the group. But the story isn't as simple as that. Both the Chinese government and Falun Gong/Shen make serious claims about the other, but those claims are difficult to verify. A big part of that is because, as Gia Tolentino of The New Yorker wrote, the fact that both Falun Gong and the Communist Party communicate via propaganda makes it almost impossible to understand what's really happening. The Chinese government has Xinhua News, China Daily, and an entire apparatus dedicated to creating its image. The Falun Gong uses the Epoch Times newspaper and New Tang Dynasty TV as pieces for its agenda. This is corroborated by the Falun Gong's own transcription of a talk that Li gave in New York in 2010. Moreover, Shen Yun and Falun Gong's headquarters hardly respond to requests for comments or interviews. They didn't respond to our request either. So instead of clarity, you get a mix of half-verified, competing claims. And at the base level, both groups seem to use varying degrees of truth distortion to communicate, sometimes even with the same facts. Like we mentioned, the Department of State estimated that there were about 2 million followers in China in 1999. But both the Chinese government and Falun Gong estimated that practitioners numbered around 70 million in China. But why? The simplest answer? The Falun Gong would want a high number to show how popular their group was. The Chinese government would want a high number to show how much of a threat the group was to the country's stability. To state more claims against the Falun Gong and Shen Yun, the Chinese embassy links out to a website that looks like it's from 2006, simply called facts.org.cn. The site states that the group was banned because it endangered lives, and claims that the organization encourages mutilation, disobeying laws, destruction of families, rooting out disagreement, and not using medicine to heal oneself. While the site appears to embellish its points, some of the claims it makes about Li's teachings do hold up. For example, it points out that Li claims that mankind has been destroyed 81 times and that he has delayed the explosion of the Earth by 30 years. And Li did write that humanity has nearly been destroyed 81 times in the Zhuan Falun. The site also points out instances where Li has claimed that his followers can achieve the ability to levitate. And yep, here he is talking about levitation.
越练越好的时候，他就会起来。这个我们学员中也很多，但是大多数呢都不让他表现出来，因为那么多人都表现出来，他会破坏常人社会状态。
While we didn't hear back from Falun Gong's headquarters about the claims of levitation, a local Falun Gong organizer pushed back against those claims. She told us that Mr. Li repeatedly stresses that practitioners should not have any pursuit for supernormal capability. The website also quotes a Time magazine interview with Li from 1999, in which Li makes several outlandish claims, including that aliens have invaded the human mind, ideology, and culture, that they come from other planets and dimensions, and that they have introduced modern machinery like computers and airplanes. The site doesn't stop there, however. It claims that Li has said astronomical phenomena caused both the Nanjing Massacre and the Holocaust, something we weren't able to find anywhere else. The Chinese Communist Party also insists that Falun Gong is anti-science and has pushed followers to refuse medical help. While Li appears to have a negative view of modern science in the Zhuan Falun, there doesn't appear to be much evidence that Falun Gong followers have refused medical help. On the other hand, Shen Yun and Falun Gong have their own set of claims against the Chinese government. For example, the performance troupe claims that the Communist Party sent 60 performance companies to compete with Shen Yun in 2006, the same year they began performing. They also allege that the party pressured theaters to back out of or not sign agreements to host Shen Yun performances. And theaters and governments in Ecuador, Ireland, Berlin, and Stockholm have corroborated those claims. Shen Yun even claims that their tour bus tires were slashed, that tour bus brake and accelerator pedals were sabotaged, and that they are continually spied on. The Falun Gong has also been talking about their persecution in China for 2 decades now. Just recently, in mid-May, almost 10,000 demonstrated in New York City, calling for the end of Falun Gong's persecution in China. And claims of persecution are fairly widely reported, including in the US Department of State's 2018 Human Rights Report on China. One of the biggest claims is that the Chinese government imprisoned and harvested the organs of Falun Gong followers. China actually admitted that it used to harvest organs from prisoners condemned to death. Some independent reporting alleges that around 60 to 100,000 organs were harvested each year from prisoners condemned to death.
We are looking at not 10,000 transplants per year in China, but something more like 60 to 100,000 transplants per year in China.
It's reasonable to believe that Falun Gong members were condemned to death for their actions and had their organs harvested. A House resolution from 2015 even acknowledged the consistent reports of organ harvesting of Falun Gong members. However, reporting can sometimes conflict over whether Falun Gong members are specifically targeted. In mid-June, an international tribunal found that forced organ harvesting has been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale, and that Falun Gong practitioners have been one, and probably the main, source of organ supply. But a 2017 report from the Washington Post seems to discredit those high organ harvesting numbers, since immunosuppressant drugs required for recipients of transplants weren't entering China at a corresponding rate. Lawyers defending Falun Gong members in Chinese courts also rejected the notion that Falun Gong members' organs were being harvested, further discrediting the idea that Falun Gong members are being specifically targeted for transplants. And again, none of this is made clear when both sides are communicating with propaganda media organizations. The Chinese government has a track record of human rights abuses, and the Falun Gong is just one example on top of many others, like the Uyghur minority in Xinjiang. But even though the Chinese government has admitted to organ harvesting, some of the Falun Gong's claims fall apart under scrutiny. It also doesn't help that the Falun Gong doesn't exactly address the eclectic claims that Li has made, or that they have media organizations to get out their propaganda. So while we're pretty sure that Shen Yun is a performance group, the reality of the organization behind Shen Yun is much less clear. Maybe the only way to find out is to experience 5,000 years of civilization at a Shen Yun performance.
So, with all of that said, everything we've showcased, we want to pass the question off to you. For those who have seen a Shen Yun performance, what was it like? Did you feel like it was propaganda? Do you have any faith that either the Chinese government or the Falun Gong are telling the truth here? And really just any thoughts and reactions I'd love to see in those comments down below. And hey, if you like this video, we'd love if you took a second to hit that like button. Also, if you're new here and we did our job and you want more of these videos in your future, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Definitely click that bell to turn on notifications. Also, if you want more news, be sure to head over to roguerocket.com or just follow us on our socials. But with that said, of course, as always, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon on the next Rogue Rocket Deep Dive.